I did want to preempt and tell y'all a little bit of what we've been doing on the chamber end. I hope all of y'all have been receiving communications from us. We're probably on, it feels like 100 webinars and phone calls and those kind of things ourselves during the week. So it's really not a slowdown at all for us. And I'm sure many of y'all feel the same way about that. If there's anything that we can do on our end to help y'all to navigate this, and you know, we just want to make sure that y'all are successful and are getting as much information as you possibly can. I can tell you post-flood, if it's any consolation to anyone, anybody who's a chamber member or a part of association like that had a 90% greater chance that they were going to survive something like this. So the network piece of it and what we build in that is really important. So I think y'all all know that, and that's why y'all are part of what we're doing here. So without further ado, I'm sure y'all want to hear more from Garrett on this end. So Garrett, I think you'll maybe go over, so I'm calling you Garrett, but it's Congressman Graves. Great to see you. And we're going to turn it over to you. And we do have a couple of questions toward the end, so give us a little time for that and give us some updates what it's like in DC. I looked at some maps. It said DC was practicing social distancing better than some of the areas of the country. What do you think about that?
That's why I took it off.
All right. So, yeah, April, you just broke up a little bit. I want to make sure it's on. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
You hear? Okay. All right. Hey, if I'm talking, I can see a few of you on here, Ross and Steve and Todd and Brittany and Wayne and April and Shelby. So if I freeze or whatever, if somebody can just do this or whatever, that would be, or if you don't like what I'm saying, maybe do that. But no, so hey, thanks for the opportunity to join you. I am actually back in Louisiana right now. I did go back and forth to Washington, and because of everything going on, we're trying to do everything we can remotely. So let me first just say, I hope that all of you all are safe. I hope that you're all healthy and doing well and adjusting to this transition of being at home a good bit more, of spending more time with family. And I'll say it again, I hope that all of you are remaining healthy as best as possible. Louisiana is not stranger to disasters. We've been through these many, many times, and I know they've been different, the hurricanes and floods and other things, but we're practiced at improvising and adapting. But it is a different type of disaster because in this case, this is global. It's affecting every country around the world, and they're all sort of in the same boat. It is having economic implications. We know that people are losing their jobs. We know that certain sectors of the economy are really taking a beating right now. But just like we've been able to recover from disasters of the past, I'm confident that we can adapt and overcome and come out stronger on this one. Some of the things we've been doing at the federal level, we've largely gone through and done 3 bills at the federal level. The first bill, was largely, I apologize, largely focused on trying to provide resources for treatment, for research, for vaccines, cures, things along those lines. And it also provided funds to CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, the National Institutes of Health, and to local and state agencies that are doing public health work. Second bill had a few components in it, including eliminating any type of cost share associated with a diagnosis for coronavirus, whether you're on Medicaid, Medicare, TRICARE, VA, private insurance, whatever you were on. It tried to waive any type of copay. And the idea was, let's not put up a barrier to people getting a diagnosis. Let's make sure that everybody can have the ability to actually get a diagnosis. Don't put an economic barrier in place. The second bill also had a provision for people that were on sick leave or family medical leave. And the idea is that if you were on sick leave or family medical, and that might be because you had a child that was home from school, and maybe it was because you were quarantined, and maybe it was because your governor's stay-home order, or maybe because you were actually sick or a family member or someone was sick. So there were provisions put in that gave your employer tax credits and almost immediate tax credits to where you could continue paying those employees or get a rebate to where you would not be out money for someone who was on sick leave or family medical leave. And that started around April 2nd. That went into effect. So if you're an employer and you had an employee or employees that were out on sick leave or family medical leave, then you would get a tax credit to help to fund those employees. So therefore, the business would not be out. And that was a dollar for dollar tax credit up to $100,000 a year equivalent salary. Third bill, the one that most of you are probably focused on right now. I'm actually going to go through some of the cats and dogs in there, then talk about the three main components of that bill. The bill had a provision that says that if you have a healthcare savings account or a flexible spending account, that you could actually use those accounts to pay for over-the-counter medicines, whether you needed ibuprofen or Tylenol or sinus medicine. Years ago, that was allowed, but they changed the law and they prohibited those things from being paid for out of your healthcare or your health savings or flexible spending account. That has been changed in this bill. You can tap those. Second thing, if you're a business, you had carryback losses from 2018, 19, or 20, you could carry those back to the previous 5 years. And so you would be able to benefit from those losses and be able to convert that effectively into cash. If you're a business, you can delay your payroll taxes for 1 year and then have 2 years to pay them back. If you have a retirement account and you needed to tap that retirement account early because of coronavirus and it impacting you, you can tap that penalty-free. There's no longer that early withdrawal penalty, and then you have 3 years to pay it back. It eliminates the requirement for to have your retirement account give you a mandatory distribution. In many cases, folks have a retirement account, but they don't want to have to take a mandatory withdrawal from that retirement account. Well, that is postponed or deferred. You don't have to take that. If you have a federal student loan, it eliminates the requirement to pay that federal student loan through September 30th of this year. It also stops the accrual of interest on that federal student loan through September 30th of this year. It expands telemedicine programs and allows those to be eligible under Medicaid, Medicare, and provides flexibility for private insurers as well, to where if you're sick, but you don't think you have coronavirus and don't want to go to the doctor or hospital because you don't want to be exposed to it, you can do just what we're doing right now. You can actually have a doctor's appointment just like we're doing, and that can be an eligible program under many healthcare and Medicaid, Medicare, other types of programs. A couple of last things. There's a $100 billion program in there for hospitals and healthcare providers, helping to provide assistance to them if they spend a lot of money setting up quarantine facilities and adding capacity. So trying to provide some assistance to those entities. That can be, again, a healthcare provider, a hospital. And it also provides $1.8 billion in payments to the state of Louisiana this month that they can use for virtually any coronavirus response activity. And just so you all know, we've asked the governor, we spearheaded a letter that was signed by every member of our delegation, Republican, Democrat, House and Senate, asking the governor to commit. And we suggested 45% of those funds to to local governments, because we know that, Livingston Parish and East Baton Rouge Parish and Ascension, in addition to, of course, what's going on in New Orleans and in Jefferson parishes, a lot of our local governments are incurring much expenses. And so we've asked the governor to share some of those funds directly with our local governments. Now, the three things that you probably care about in this bill that are affecting you directly. The first one is a program called the Economic Relief Payment Program, Economic Relief Payments. So that one is payments of up to $1,200 for virtually any adult. And so it's $1,200. The way that it works is that that would come to you based on your 2019 taxes. If you filed those, if you don't file those, if you're going to extend, keep in mind you have until July 15th to pay those or to file those. But if you're going to extend or not pay them, then it'll go off your 2018 taxes. And if you are a single individual, you can make up to $75,000 and get a $1,200 payment. If you're head of household, you can make up to $112,500, and this is again adjusted gross. And if you're married filing jointly, it's $150,000. And if you're married filing jointly, that would be $2,400 payment that you would be eligible for. Bless you. So the deal is, if you make over $150,000 married, if you make over $75,000 single, it doesn't automatically all go away. It's reduced proportionally. It's reduced 5% for every dollar you make over $75,000 as a single person. So, for example, if you're married and have 2 children, you'll still get a payment at over $200,000 adjusted gross. If you are married and you have no kids and you file jointly, you can still make up to, I think it's $198,000 in adjusted gross before the check would entirely go away. So it's a pretty generous program. In addition to the $1,200 per adult, it's $500 per dependent child. A dependent child is someone who is 17 years old or younger, and you file them as a dependent on your taxes. Lastly, on this one, if you're a retiree or if you're on SSI disability payments, you don't have to do anything. If you're on Social Security, retiree, and getting benefits, or you're on SSI, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to file anything. They are going to use your Social Security data and will just send you a check the same way that you receive your existing retirement or SSI benefits. So that's number one. All right, moving on to the second one, unemployment insurance. Right now, there's an unemployment insurance program run by the state of Louisiana. On average, the program pays $247 a week, and it lasts for 12 weeks. And you are ineligible for the first 7 days. And if you work for a not-for-profit, a self-employed independent contractor, if you work for a government, you're ineligible under existing program. However, all that's changed. Under this program, number one, the 7-day waiver period has been eliminated. So you effectively can start drawing benefits on day one. I'm going to caveat that and come back to it. Number two, self-employed, which means if you're a self-employed individual, if you're a 1099 contractor, if you're a gig economy worker, you are now eligible. If you work for a state or local government and you're laid off or furloughed, you are now eligible. The program adds a $600 a week federal supplement. And it turns on week one, so there's no longer the 7-day waiver. And it goes on for an additional 13 weeks, so should be turned on for a total of 25 weeks. Now, just like this whole thing has been this whole coronavirus thing has caught a lot of people off guard, the state of Louisiana administers this unemployment program. They have been completely overwhelmed. During the Great Recession, the state of Louisiana received 3,700 unemployment income applications a week. 2 weeks ago, they received, for that 1 week, they received 73,000. Not 3,700, 73,000. They have been completely overwhelmed in the number and overwhelmed in adjusting their system to reflect these new federal changes. They're catching up, they're getting things online, but it does not matter if it takes them, and I'm going to make this up, a month to process your application. They will retroactively make the payments to you. So I understand that means that you may be sitting on waiting on them to process your application, but they will retroactively pay you. So I'll say it again: if you're self-employed, 1099 contractor, gig economy worker, you work for a not-for-profit, you work for a state or local government, and you're furloughed or laid off, you are still eligible under the program. Personally, I think the program's really, really generous and probably a little more generous than I would have done on my own. But that's what the law says, and it's pretty amazing. Now, there's a provision in there that says that if your employer just can't afford to pay you your full payroll, but because they've lost business, but can pay you a reduced salary, there's something called short-term compensation that's allowed under the bill, but the state of Louisiana does not yet have that program. So let's make up numbers. Your employer has to reduce your payroll by $1,500 a month. Under the law, the unemployment program could come in and potentially supplement your pay and replace part of that pay that your employer is unable to pay you. That way you stay on employee retirement, you stay on employer health care, but your employer just can't afford to pay you all the way. So it provides an incentive to not lay you off, but the state of Louisiana does not currently have a program that does that. I sent a letter to the governor yesterday asking him to stand that program up because it is allowed under federal law and the federal government will help to pay for it. All right, so that is program number 2. Program number 3 is called the Paycheck Protection Program. This has never been established before, never been done before. And to the federal government's credit, we all beat up on the bureaucracy. They took a program that did not exist and 1 week later in law, 1 week, created it and put it online. Is it operating perfectly, efficiently? Is everyone getting their loans processed immediately? No, but they have processed about 15,000 loans the very first day. And it was really impressive, the amount of money that they were able to do in the very first day. They processed, I think it was 5.3. I'm looking for the email. I think it was $5.3 billion in loans in the first day. 5.4 billion. They processed it. So the exact number was 17,503 loans processed on the very first day, and it was $5.4 billion in loans. And so to put that in perspective, that was more than all of the loans processed by the SBA, Small Business Administration, in 2019. And they did it in 1 day. Now, the way that this program works is that what you do if you are a small business owner, if you're a small business owner, what you would do is you would take all of your payroll from the previous year. So let's just say 2019. You would then divide it by 12. Your payroll includes retirement benefits. It includes healthcare, all the benefits that are included in compensation. So let's just, for easy math, say that you come out to an average of $20,000 a month in payroll, 20,000. You would then take that 20,000, you would multiply it times 2.5. So that'd come out to 50,000, right? So 20,000 is your average monthly payroll from a previous year. You would multiply it times 2.5, you'd come out to 50,000. 50,000 is what you can apply for a loan. That's the maximum loan under the Paycheck Protection Program you can apply for. So you then go to your local bank. It is one that you're going to want to go to a bank that you have an existing relationship with, because there's some requirements that they confirm your identity. If you have an account with them already, it'll speed all that up. And so go to a bank that, and here's what I would ask them. Are you currently a SBA approved lender? Do you have access to the E-Trans system? And as long as they say yes on those two questions, I would go through that bank. E-Tran is the system that your bank will communicate with the SBA. So you don't have to apply for this program through the SBA. You apply through your local bank or credit union. I would do it with one that you have an existing relationship with, and I would do it with one that tells you they are currently a preferred or an approved lender through the SBA and they're processing PPP applications. Now, so you can apply for that $50,000 loan, and here's the thing. The day that your loan is approved for that $50,000 under the makeup scenario that I laid out, starting on that day, for the succeeding 8 weeks, you can use that $50,000 to pay your employees, including, again, healthcare, retirement benefits. You can use it to pay your utility cost. You can use it to pay your rent. You can use it to pay your mortgage interest, okay? Those are the 4 eligible things that you can use that loan for. Here's the most important thing I'm going to say today. As long as an employer, you use 75%, at least 75% of that loan for payroll, your entire loan can be forgiven, okay? So as long as you spend at least 75% of that on payroll, paying your employees, keeping them employed, your entire $50,000 loan under that makeup scenario I laid out can be forgiven. So there's a $2 million cap on the loan program. Again, $2 million has to be, the 2.5 multiple of your payroll. If there's any residual on your loan, meaning it's not all forgiven, it is a 1% interest rate, and you have 2 years to pay it back. So that's how that program works. It is opened up to independent contractors, 1099 employees, self-employed, gig workers, and not-for-profits, which includes schools, churches, things like that. So that's how the PPP works. The last thing I'll say in regard to loans under the bill, there's another loan program called EIDL. Yes, you can have both an EIDL loan and a PPP loan. I would just strongly, strongly urge you, if you get both, make sure you do not use your EIDL loan for payroll during that 8-week period, because you don't want to jeopardize your ability to have your PPP loan forgiven. EIDL loan is an interest rate of 3.75% for businesses. It is a interest rate of 2.75 for not-for-profits. It is a maximum of $10 million, and it is not forgivable. So you can use it for other business expenses, and you can, again, have an EIDL loan and a PPP loan at the same time. So in closing, and then we'll pivot to y'all's questions. Look, this is a challenge. It's a curveball. We've never been through this. I'd take a hurricane over this any day. But this is all about us adapting. This is all about us improvising. It's about us using technology, innovation to make sure that we can continue moving forward. And we've seen some extraordinary efforts within our community, whether it's our community members figuring out how to make masks and protective equipment. It's our community members stepping up and saying, you know what, I'm gonna buy lunch for some of our healthcare workers, or stepping up and saying, you know what, my neighbor's a senior citizen and more vulnerable population, so I'm gonna go ahead and do grocery shopping for them. Or, you know what, I'm gonna contribute to this local organization that's being helpful to our community members. Or, you know what, I'm just gonna pray for those that are affected by coronavirus, or those that, like our president or our governor, who are having to lead through this. Thank you. That's what we're about in Louisiana. We know how to adapt. We know how to overcome, and I just want to make sure that all of us are stepping up and doing the right thing, and just helping one another out. Paul just slipped me a note. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah, so backwards.
All right, sorry.
There's
I apologize. I got the loan numbers backwards. I didn't realize it. EIDL loan is a $2 million cap. Sorry. EIDL loan is a $2 million cap. PPP loan is a $10 million cap. I apologize. So the $10 million cap is on the Paycheck Protection Program, and that's the one that's forgivable. EIDL is not forgivable, $2 million cap. Sorry about that.
No, you're good on that. There's been a ton of information. Can you hear me okay? Making sure y'all can hear me. Because I'm going to kind of moderate some of these questions. There's definitely, there's a lot of information and resources that have been going out. And I think everybody is getting a good grasp on the difference between the two, the difference in the interest rates and the terms. There's a big question that comes up on the EIDL. There's that $10,000 quick cash advance that was supposed to be paid within 3 days. So there's a
Yeah.
couple of questions on that. One of them is, first of all, nobody's received that. I'm sure y'all are aware that we know of yet. The second one is that I've heard through several channels, and also sat in on a webinar yesterday from the Small Business Development Center that says that $10,000 advance, we just thought it was going to be an automatic 10,000. It's tied to your number of employees. So if you have 3, and it's $1,000 per employee with a max of 10,000. So if you have 3 employees, you're maxed out at 3,000. Those are the rumblings that we're hearing. Like I said, I sat in on one, and that's the first time I had it in any kind of writing, came in through that PowerPoint. And so we really would love some clarity on that end. That's coming from the SBA down to the Small Business Development Centers, and a lot of SBA officials are saying that as well.
Yeah. So April, number one, look, SBA has been completely overwhelmed by everything that's going on. And I got to give so much credit to Secretary Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury. He has been absolutely remarkable. He has stepped in working side by side with the SBA and has really been an incredible leader in getting this whole thing stood up. The reason that Senator Marco Rubio, got to give him credit too, for much of the design of this PPP program, the reason that we're using the banks as really the capacity and the sort of the application entity is it just gives so many more points of presence to where we can engage directly there, use their capacity, and not overburden the SBA system. Their entire loan system was blown up on one of the first days the EIDLs originally opened up. They were just completely overwhelmed. So they are catching up. There still are a lot of questions to be answered, April, but what we'll do is we do have some information on EIDL, and what we'll do is we'll send you some of that written information and just let you make it available to your members so y'all can go through and look at some of the criteria. We also have a number of documents for the PPP, and we will send you those as well, just to give something for people to look at, to review. There's some frequently asked question documents. And for those of you that like to nerd out like me, there's a 31-page document, a 16-page document that lays out some of the rules. And so we can give you the easy version, we can give you the longer one, but a lot of the documents help to go through and lay out the criteria. But let me just say it again, yes, particularly in EIDL, because SBA is running that one. They have been overwhelmed by that program.
Yeah, so we'll keep a lookout on that and keep on working with our representatives on that end, because it is questioned. And if anybody on here ends up getting any of the money, please shoot over into me and let me know so we can understand what's out there as well. There's several questions on here. Let's see.
Yeah, I can see them. Do you want me to go through them, or what?
Yeah,
what's easiest?
There's I wanted to see some recurring themes on this. Some of them, a lot of people who are self-employed want to know what and didn't actually pull a W-2 for themselves. You know, what program is in there for them?
Yeah, sure. So self-employed, you have a couple of options. So, well, actually, number one, just to remind you, the $1,200 economic relief payment, you should be eligible for that, subject to the income provisions. Number two, unemployment. We did expand unemployment, opened it up to self-employed or 1099 workers. So you should be eligible there. Now, let me just make a caveat. And, I said earlier that during the Great Recession in 08-09, Louisiana Workforce Commission received about 3,700 applications a week for unemployment on average. And then 2 weeks ago, they received 73,000. So they are completely overwhelmed over there. They are trying to get caught up. Because self-employed were not previously eligible for unemployment assistance, Louisiana Workforce Commission has to change their eligibility criteria. So they are continuing to work on all that. You can apply now. You may not get approved right now, but you can apply now and get yourself in the queue there, and you will be paid retroactively for when your eligibility date started. So that's one option for you. The other option is that as a self-employed person or 1099 worker, you can apply. You can apply to the PPP program. Now, so you say, okay, well, how in the world am I going to determine my income average payroll for 2019 or for the previous year if I'm self-employed? Well, what you can do is you can take your draws. You can take any compensation, commissions, tips, any income that you took over the past 12 months or in 2019 and average it out. So take it and divide it by 12. And then, add in, of course, your monthly benefits, such as any healthcare or retirement benefits that are included. And that is effectively your monthly payroll that you then multiply times 2.5. And that gets you your maximum PPP loan amount. And then as long as you use that moving forward, at least 75% for your payroll and benefits, then that can be forgiven. So you have effectively two options. One of them is the unemployment, which should be a maximum of an average of $247 a week from the state plus the $600 payment. And the other would be the PPP program. I just remind you, if you're paying yourself out of a PPP loan, a Paycheck Protection Program loan, and drawing unemployment, that would be a duplication. So if you draw unemployment now and then you get a PPP loan, stop your unemployment, pay yourself with your PPP loan, and then as long as 75% of that goes to your payroll, you can have that entire loan forgiven, provided that the remaining is used on rent, on utilities, and on mortgage interest associated with your business.
Great. So there was a lot of y'all had questions on that in varying, written in various ways. Is everybody good on that? If you're not, can you please go back and put that back on the bottom? Michael Joy says the EIDL Advanced website says does not have to be repaid. So we're hearing that as well, that's the big thing about it. It's supposed to be quick cash and it's forgivable and a forgivable advance. So that's correct. Right?
That is correct. On the EIDL, the advance is not, that is forgivable. Even if you're ultimately rejected, it is forgivable, just that $10,000.
Kim Landry Galloway, I see you're on there asking, if you just apply for that and then if you're approved for a loan. Sorry, Garrett, I just did some things on this. But it definitely, what we're hearing and seeing on that is that you do not, even if you're approved for the loan, have to take it. And then you still, that from the information we're receiving from the SBA, that even if you decline it, you still get the $10,000. The big question is still, is that going to be based on the number of employees or not? Brandy asked, there's a 1% interest rate for 2 years. What about the residual that is not used for approved expenses?
Well, so the EIDL is only for those 4 uses that I excuse me, hold on.
PPP, I know.
I'm sorry. The Paycheck Protection Program loan that's based on the 2.5 multiple of your payroll, it is only eligible for those 4 things. So that's what you need to use the money on. That's one of those questions that if you end up using it on something else, there has not been complete clarity, but my guess is what would happen is they would give you 2 years to pay it back at the 1% interest rate. But I'd urge you try and use 100% of that loan for those 4 things.
I was going to mention something on that and I totally lost my train of thought for just a second. I have a question from Todd. It just came in directly from when we were asking previously. What form is necessary for an agent to be designated and who is to complete it and when?
Yeah, April, that's a really good question. So what they're talking about is under the Paycheck Protection Program, it does contemplate an agent that such as an accountant or someone like that to help prepare applications for small businesses. And there is a originating fee percentage that is somewhere between 1% and 5%, and it depends upon the amount of the PPP loan. I'm doing this from memory, which means I'm probably wrong, but I think it's a 5% origination fee for loans 350 and below, and I think it drops to 1% for over $1 million. It's a tiered system, 3 or 4 tiers, and what it says is that out of that origination fee that the banks or credit unions receive, an agent or someone that helps to prepare the applications can then take part of that origination fee. I got to tell you, honestly, it is not clear how that works, except that it is clear that the agent's commission would come out of the origination fee for the banks or credit unions. So I think that the best thing to do would be to engage a bank or credit union first that your client would be applying to, and see if there's some clarification on how you would be eligible, because again, your agent fee comes out of the origination fee from that bank or credit union. It does not come directly from the SBA. So that's what I would suggest to you right now. But the agent fees are set in the rules that are established for this program.
Good stuff. To follow up on that, there's also a question: how can employers who added several employees in 2020 get to apply for a larger loan than their 2019 average payroll?
It doesn't. And look, we could have sat around and tried to think through every scenario, and the SBA and Treasury could, and this program would take a year to get stood up, as we saw with the ridiculous interpretation of duplication of benefits and other things that our great federal family sometimes goes through. So this one's more of a shotgun approach. It's more of a blunt approach, and it doesn't address every situation. I can say that for those folks that do have more seasonal employment, there is a scenario where you could take, I think it's an 8 or 12 week period, and try and demonstrate that your payroll should be based upon that. There may be an opportunity for someone who has had to surge up in 2020 to take advantage of the seasonal payroll provision. And April, I'll send you, or Paul will send you, there's a frequently asked questions document that was released last night that talks about that a little bit. It also is on some of the longer form documents, the 31-page document, for example, that lays that out. But I think that would be the only potential. The other is if you're a newer business and if you don't have a full 1 year of payroll established to determine your year average payroll, then you can use your January and February payroll to determine your average payroll. So if you're a newer business, that may work out for you.
This one probably answers into a question or an answer you had earlier, as pertaining to unemployment benefits. So you recommend that they release the unemployment benefits, but what about that additional $600 per week if they fall under unemployment benefits? It's kind of attractive to people.
Yeah.
They're kind of asking, what's the better route for me, as far as that end goes.
Well, so maybe what you do is you take unemployment until your employer or your business, if you're self-employed, until you have a loan approved, and then you have a PPP loan, and you can pay yourself out of that loan. But I do want to make note, April, that we expect that the $350 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program is going to run out of money. I think it's going to run out of money this month. So if you think that you need a loan, I would encourage you to do it sooner than later. I do think that we're going to replenish the program. There is one of the things that I'm pushing for in that third bill. There were certain members of Congress that added some superfluous or pork to it, including $150 million for the National Endowment for Humanities, $25 billion for transit systems, $25 million for the Kennedy Center, who then turned around and laid off all their employees the next day. And so I want to take all of that money back. I want to rescind it, that money and other, and I want to reprogram it to the Paycheck Protection Program. And if we need more money on top of that, that's fine. But we're working right now to try and identify how we can replenish that program. But I would be concerned, April, that you may be familiar with partisan politics, that if we try to do a fourth bill and all we try and do is add money to the Paycheck Protection Program, I could very easily see other members of Congress trying to come in and doing things like trying to further enhance unemployment, which I think is already really, really generous. I could see them coming in and trying to add other programs, like you may have seen. They tried to add all these climate change programs and tried to add wind and solar tax credits, things that don't have anything to do with coronavirus. And so I really want to focus on coronavirus right now. And I'm just concerned that there could be a delay or gap once we run out of money on Paycheck Protection Program. It could, depending on what happens, it could just be a day or it could be a month or more where we're unable to come to an agreement on how to replenish the program. So do it early, and I would think about how to sequence your unemployment with your paycheck protection.
And we'll add in the 501c6s on that next, right? Just so y'all know, we're the chamber industry, the 501c6s, we were excluded from any grant type programming.
And April, when it first came out, all not-for-profits were excluded. Self-employed were excluded. So we were able to add back 501c3s, and churches and others were included. Schools were included, but you're right, sixes aren't included. So there's only veterans organizations and C3s.
Brandy, I noticed on there you said Capital One isn't set up. Several of the banks were originally in. You notice the interest rate went from 0.5% to 1%. So we think that had something to do with that end of it, for the, making it attractive to the banks. But as far as I know, several of them did come back online with it. I know Regions is processing, Pelican's process. I'm looking up here to see some of the people I know who are on here. There's several people that we have that are direct people that we can connect you with if you're having any issues on that end of it. This is a medical question. We have one that says that typically they receive 30 to 45 days out on this. Is a long question. Let me see if I can make it succinct. So insurance companies usually pay them 30 to 45 days later, which means that anything they're doing now is going to, come up down the road. A loss of income and most of the hardships when all of the employees are full-time again is when really things are going to start, being a negative for them. So they're considered essential. Let me see. The question is, what measures are in place to help medical professionals in the future when these start coming through, or is it back to the loan programs that are in place already?
So I don't know exactly what type of medical business, but number one, there's $100 billion in the legislation for healthcare providers, recognizing, as I said, in some cases, they had to totally modify their businesses. They had to set up quarantine areas and other, all the PPE that's required. So that those dollars are appropriated for anyone that treats coronavirus patients under Medicare. There's a 20% supplement that's been added. All sorts of programs in there for healthcare providers. Another one is that a specific child care appropriation set up for healthcare workers, first responders, and others. So a number of things that have been provided specifically for healthcare workers and those on the front line. If someone like that is a healthcare worker or a healthcare company is experiencing challenges, I think that you would be able to take your 2019 payroll and use that for a PPP loan that could be forgiven. So that should help you. And even if there's a delay in payments, you should be able to take your 2019 payroll and demonstrate how much it is that your payroll, how to quantify it for a month's time, and use that to determine your loan eligibility, and then use that to buy you through another 8 weeks of payroll cost. In addition, the employee retention credit of up to $5,000 if your business has experienced a decline in a comparable quarter from last year, you would be eligible for up to $5,000 per employee in a retention credit.
Yeah, some of them, talk to some employers, there's a little nervous about, they're scared that, everybody's got a little gun shy about any of these recovery type things, that. There's a lot of private money that was spent on the recovery 2016, so not everybody had a chance to replenish all of their reserves. So I think there's a little angst in that area. But anyway, some of them are saying, well, I'm afraid if I keep them on and I'm paying a payroll, and then I end up that not being a forgiven piece. So just know that there's a little tentative on that end. But one of the questions was, when does the 8-week payroll period start for PPP? When you receive the funds or when the employees officially start back to work?
So it's my understanding that that it starts when your loan is approved. So when you receive the funds, we've asked them to see if they could grant some flexibility there. But on some of the frequently asked question documents that we have, I believe that you do have until June 30th to actually get your employee numbers back up. But keep in mind that in order to have the loan forgiven, you do have to hit 75% of that loan being used for payroll.
Yeah, we've set in, there's some really good stuff that we've been sitting in on as well. If you're all members, we're sending out to you. Goes right along, because I know there's a lot of information coming from lots of different places. The U.S. Chamber has been very good. We've seen their resources used all over the place on that. So the retention credit might be a little long, and then we'll come, because we've got about 3 minutes left. What is the PPP interest if the loan isn't forgiven? We said that's the 1%. Yeah, Joel, that's the 1% one. Any other really pressing? We jump in on it real quick. Christine, did I get texted over everything that people are asking? 1%.
Yes.
1% for 2 years. Did you send them over to me?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And in April, Paul emailed you some of the documents that I cited.
Good deal. So, what's the vibe? Economy's gonna boom, or what we're gonna do here? It's gonna explode, or are we gonna all be crying in our soup? Just kidding. All positive. We're all positive thoughts.
Now, positive thoughts, but I think you're going to have different sectors that are going to rebound much faster. I mean, I think that for example, if you're a barber or hairstylist or whatever else, I mean, you better watch out as soon as things open back up. I mean, I think everybody's can go get their mullet cut very quickly, and but other businesses, we're looking right now at our energy industry, which of course has a profound impact on Louisiana's economy. And it's been incredible. I mean, barrel price dropped to $18 a barrel because not just coronavirus, first decrease in demand we've had in decades for energy, but what Russia and OPEC are doing, Saudis are doing with just this glut of supply. They're getting a double whammy, both the supply and the demand side. So,
well, if nothing else, the memes that are coming out of this have been hilarious. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's good stuff. There's a couple of other things. We'll probably pull it offline. Jamie's asking with the sheriff's department. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. You have time for that one more? You got to run. Where is he, David? I didn't get another text from David. So we good?
Yeah, I've got about 3 minutes. Yeah, or 2 or 3
Jamie's
minutes.
asking from the sheriff's department. They won't be able to recoup some salaries, government to employees at home through payroll tax credit. Will there be other options for them?
Yeah. So Jamie, first, thanks for all of y'all's work. Y'all are awesome. And appreciate what y'all are doing. So under the $1.8 billion that we have provided to the state of Louisiana, Jamie, I mentioned earlier that we spearheaded a delegation letter where we've asked the governor to share some of those funds directly with local governments, just because 1.8 billion is about 20% of the state's operating budget. And I mean, so it's pretty extraordinary. Right now, FEMA is paying 75% of the cost of all the protective measures that the state is carrying out. And we expect, I think it's in 2 weeks, Paul, in 2 weeks, it's going to go from 75% to 90%. And of course, that's retroactive to 90%. So the amount of of outlays coming out of the state, it should, the real liability on the state's budget should be minimal. And so, Jamie, we're asking that those funds be provided, again, directly to local governments. And keep in mind, Jamie, and we're happy to work with you. I know this is a new type of disaster, but all of y'all's PA expenses, under protective measures, those are all reimbursable through FEMA as well. So there are some additional CDC funds, Centers for Disease Control funds, that have been distributed to state and local governments. So let us know how we can help there. I know you know how to get in touch with us, and we're happy to see if we can help address some of y'all's funding challenges that you may be experiencing as a result of this.
Well, very good deal. Dale already said, great job, Garrett. Just texted me over to you. Great job. Everybody's really appreciative of you coming on to this. We're happy about that. We're very happy we didn't get Zoom bombed. So, but so y'all be on the lookout. We'll send y'all an email, but it's a real thing. And so anyway, it's very, very appreciative of your time. And like you said, we're talking to some of our people who are in industries like the massage, massage, I can't say that word, massage, tell me that word, hair, they're like getting their people ready, because as soon as this is over, to work, 12, 13-hour days. So it's going to be a rush for them. They're going to have a lot going on. So it's good stuff.
Well, look, we're going to dump documents on you, April. I want to urge any of you, if you have questions or need things, we do telephone town halls, we do Facebook Lives, we'll do this, but call the office. Just give us a call. We'll see if we can track down whatever information you need, and to answer your questions and be helpful. If y'all have ideas on how things could work better, on what we need to be thinking about for long-term recovery, please let us know. April, I got it loud and clear on the C6s. I know that that's something that we need to try and fix on this, but just look, please engage us and let us know how we can be helpful. And if I think you heard, you mentioned Senator Ernie, and I just want to quickly take advantage of this opportunity. Senator, if you know of anybody in the legislature, the state currently does not have a short-term compensation program authorized, which would allow an employer who is experiencing a decline in revenue to, instead of laying someone off, simply pay them less money and then have unemployment help to supplement that. That way they can stay on retirement, they can stay on health insurance for the business. Under the bill that we did, the CARES Act, the federal government will pay for that supplement, but the state has to have a program in place, and Louisiana right now does not. And so that may be something that y'all want to look at, just to give employers more options. And again, it's federally funded, so it shouldn't be a hit on the state.
A good deal. And we're the same. We would love to hear ideas on the recovery end of it as well, sharing that information. I think it's really important. There's a lot of collaboration on this stuff now between all the entities, public, private, organizations, et cetera. So we're all in on collaboration end of it. We appreciate you coming out. Next time, I guess your hair, but really needing haircuts, but it's all good. Everybody looks great.
I mean, it's
great to see everybody. So yes, we appreciate it, and we'll follow up with you. And good job. And David's given me you have got to go. So
yeah, I do. I need to be on a call with Steve.
David's the mean guy. Just kidding. We love David. Thanks, David and Paul, for helping us put this together. Alex as well. We appreciate your staff and everything they do, Garrett.
Yeah, April, thanks to all of you. I appreciate you being on and give us the opportunity. Stay safe. Call our office if we can do anything at all. God bless.
Thank you.